Have you ever thought it would be cool if you could see your entire lineage up until your oldest great-great-great-grandfather that ever existed? Well, if you did, then you're lucky, because in this video we'll do it for you. Now, first thing you may be wondering is, how can I even possibly know who my first ancestor was? But you may wonder that only if you're a complete moron. For God's sake, it was Adam! Anyone who has any sense left in them will know it was Adam. But today, just for the sake of this video, we'll pretend we are believers in science and biology and evolution. You know, just for fun. So, let us start with your grandparents. Your grandfather was probably born during or after World War II, and was, and maybe still is, much tougher than you. Then we'll get to your great-great-grandfather, who was likely born around 1850s. He was probably dirt poor industrial worker or a peasant, and looked something like this. He lived most of his life without running water or electricity, and he was probably more racist than you are. You've never met him, but without him you wouldn't exist. Now we move to his father, his father's father, and so on. Let us jump back 18 generations to your great times 20 grandfather. This guy kept it real. When he wasn't torturing somebody, he was being tortured himself. When he wasn't catching the Black Plague and dying, he was slaughtering women and children in wars. If he could meet you, he'd be blown away by the ease of your current existence. But not as blown away as your great times 500 grandfather would be. Your great times 500 grandfather didn't spend years stalling over which career would be best expression of his inner purpose. He hunted animals, battled other tribes, and somehow managed to impregnate someone before dying in his early 30s. Had he not, you and few million other of today's people wouldn't currently exist. Now we reach a time before humans were fully humans, and a time where a very special man lived. Your 14,000th grandfather. Man, this guy was great. Scientists call him Y-chromosomal Adam. Would you look at that? Maybe scientists and creationists can agree on something after all. This Y-chromosomal Adam is the most recent male ancestor from whom all current living humans are descended. In other words, he's not just your great 14,000th great-grandfather, he is everyone's distant grandfather. And he is the last time in history a common male ancestor to all of us lived. All ancestors we will discuss from this point onward are common to the entire human race. So, what was this Y-chromosomal Adam like? He was a disgusting, highly unpleasant man who probably raped people. But the good news for all of us is that he lived, and he survived long enough to pass on his genes. If he hadn't, the human race probably would have survived, but the current world would be completely different and none of us would exist. Now we'll move on and go 3 million years in the past. And here's where things begin to get weird. 3 million years ago, there were no humans. Our ancestor from that time were some hybrid of ape and human called Australopithecus. Your great 220,000 time great-grandfather was not really a sophisticated man. His brain was 35% of the size of a normal human brain, and he was not very attractive. But what he was one of the first of your ancestors to be bipedal, meaning that he could stand upright. This allowed him to use his hands for other things, like making and using tools, which in turn allowed the smartest to thrive, pushing the quick evolution of bigger brains. Now we come to your 550,000 times great-grandfather. And he was a very important monkey. Not only is he the ancestor of every living human, he is the ancestor of every living chimpanzee as well. This is the last time in history we shared an ancestor with chimps. Scientists believe that 6 million years ago is about the time the hominid tribe split into two branches that would eventually result in humans and chimps. This means that around the time there existed one monkey who had one child that went on to become the ancestor of all humans and another child that went on to become the ancestor of all chimps. Cool, eh? Unlike most of his descendants, your 15 millionth great-grandfather had shitty timing and coexisted with the dinosaurs. Until the massive asteroid led to extinction of the dinosaurs around 66 million years ago, mammals were small, second-class citizens confined mostly to the trees. This unassuming fellow is the common ancestor to all modern primates. Here I want you to take a moment and absorb the fact that your great, 55 million times great-grandfather was a rodent. More specifically, he was a eutherian, the first placental mammal, and the father to all mammals beside marsupials and egg layers. So, from this point on, our ancestry is the same as for whales or any other mammals. Instead of screaming when he saw a centipede and then throwing a book at it and running away like a normal person, your 125 million times great-grandfather ate it. He was an early lizard, the first in our lineage with legitimate arms and legs and an advanced nervous system. And he's the last time all mammals, reptiles and birds share a common ancestor. Walking is a generous term for what this guy did during his land excursions. He'd pull himself miserably throughout the mud, struggling to breathe, all so that you could one day live outside the hell that is called dark ocean. He's called an acanthostega, and he pioneered a number of key modern features, including lungs, alongside his gills and bones in his flippers, an innovation that led to arms and legs for his descendants. Your 220 million times great-grandfather was a fish. Just look at him, look at your arms and legs, and then again look at him. Your limbs are just a more evolved version of those two pairs of flimsy little fins. If the prehistoric fish had adapted differently to needing to balance itself in the ocean, the human body might look vastly different today. His other claim to fame is being the first creature with jaw. Previous ancestors only had a suction hole. This means he's also the one responsible for later human separations into chads and incels. Damn fish. If your 255 million times great-grandfather seems like an embarrassing flatworm, that's because he is. But he gets credit for both the invention of the brain and being the first animal to be bilateral, essentially having a front and a back. I don't know what to tell you, man. This is a part of your lineage. I want you just to pause and ponder for a second that I'm not inventing silly shit here. If you take your father and your father's father and do that 435 million times, you'll end up at a jellyfish. Evolution is boggling. Besides not being true. But let's not pass over jellyfish without due credit for two huge innovations: nerves and muscles. Eyes first happened around this time as well, which one theory states as a major reason for Cambrian explosion when animal life suddenly burst into diversity. So, good for them. Your 555 million times great-grandfather was a sponge, and spent his life bored as fuck. He does have one massive feather in his cap though, which is that he is the world's first animal. Up until his life, all life consisted of single-cell organisms, and he was the first creature made of multiple cells. Now we have to go a whole lot of generations back to get to your 100 billion times great-grandfather, a complex single-cell eukaryote. He may not look like much, but he is both the ancestor of the entire animal kingdom and the inventor of sex. He's also kinda cute. But what this also means is that all of your ancestors from these points backwards are essentially your grandfather and grandmother at the same time, dividing itself constantly like there's no tomorrow. Going way back to the earlier part of Earth's existence, we arrive at your 850 billion times great-grandfather, helpless simple-cell bacterium with little charisma. His crowning achievement is the invention of photosynthesis, which filled the atmosphere with oxygen and paved the way for modern life to exist. Going back 1.15 trillion generations and roughly 3.8 billion years, we arrive at the end of our line, the first living particle and the founder of all life on Earth. We are not quite sure yet how he started living in the first place. It's one of the great scientific questions of our time. There are a number of theories, including spontaneous generation, emerges from primordial soup, and some even suggest he might come to Earth from somewhere else in space. Either way, we owe a lot to him, and we should take a moment to appreciate his lonely moments of life 3.8 billion years ago that led to everything we know. We are proud to be your descendants, little lonely particle, and we are grateful for your existence. And getting back to you guys, I wanted to say that idea for this video came from an article of site Wait But Why, Meet Your Ancestors. It's a really fantastic story and they seem like fantastic guys, so please check them out if you want. When I came up on this article, I just thought it would be a shame if nobody made a video about it, so here we are. And if you like the video, leave a like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see each other in the next video. Thank you for watching, and bye. Bye bye.